So now we're going into our next session, and we're doing a bit of a Q&A style session with Rebecca Doherty from Phocas Software. I'm going to let her introduce herself so you know exactly what she does and what role she plays, but we're really looking now at how do we retain our Millennial and Gen Z workforces. We've so far covered off how do we acquire them, how do we get them into our business, how do we attract them, how do we lead them, and then how do we manage them, and some great content that we've covered so far in that space. But now how do we get them to stay? We've invested a lot in them. How do we make sure that we keep those assets in our business and then grow them from there? So welcome, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kerry. Hi, everybody. So as Kerry mentioned, I'm Rebecca Doherty from Phocas Software. I'm the People and Culture Manager for the Australian and New Zealand regions. And Phocas Software is a business analytics software helping customers, make data great in their business. So it's a global company, about 185 employees, all mixes of people, from support people through to technical people. So lots of diverse employees that we work with every day.
And I imagine very diverse generations.
Very diverse generations, absolutely. So people from, the baby boomers and maybe even a bit earlier than that, right through to your most recent generation coming through.
Fantastic. So one of the questions that we have today is, how do we actually retain young workers? What are some of the things that we really need to be doing if we want to keep them in the business?
It's a wonderful question, and one that constantly is running through my brain of how do we, inspire and, keep growing and building our people moving forward so that they're our next leaders. And it's about the opportunities that the business can provide for them. And that, I guess, brings opportunities for the business to be more agile, and also maybe go, try new things that they may not have actually thought of or been able to undertake moving forward, and grow them into that next phase of their business.
So I suppose there's a bit of a balance there between being a company that's quite agile and providing lots of opportunities, but getting the job done still. Yeah. So, how would a business like your business navigate that balance?
Yeah, so again, it's about thinking about what the person is aspiring to be or do, and then building plans and development around those spaces, and thinking, I guess, a little bit more broadly around how you can leverage the older generation to support that newer generation. So, we use our, I guess, more experienced people to partner and buddy with our up-and-comers, sort of in peer programming sessions, or, as support buddies to, impart that wonderful knowledge that the baby boomers and others have, but also provide them the opportunity to learn from, the Gen Zs and Millennials as well.
Because there's a lot of opportunity for each generation to learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And I suppose the more that they're engaged and invested in the organisation and the teams they work with, the less likely they are about wanting to leave because they're enjoying the workspace.
Absolutely.
So why do they leave?
I guess the one thing that comes to mind is the opportunities that they have, and see possibilities of opportunities in other organisations if you're sort of, I guess, a bit more stagnant, or maybe using older technologies, or not so advanced in building systems and programs to support their growth and development. Another one that does also come up from time to time is around the sort of packages that people can offer. So it's not just about what they're getting paid on their base, but it's about, all the ancillary pieces that, tie together to make up that whole experience and opportunity for them. So
let's talk about packages, because I think being able to offer diverse packages to employees is something which I think is quite new. If we go back 10 years, you would have quite a standard set of packages, no matter what size business you were, and you either fit into that box, that's the package, take it or leave it, and if you didn't fit into that box, well, I guess you're not the right employee for us. So when we're trying to encourage our employing managers and our employing businesses to look at being creative with packages. What are some of the things they could actually include that are not cash when it comes to a package?
Definitely. So I guess think about everyday life. Maybe it's health insurance at a discounted rate. It could be extra superannuation contributions because, that's maybe not tangible right now, but it definitely is supporting them for their future lives. Life insurance, that's a big one that's always being talked about at the moment. We provide at Phocas subscriptions to different platforms, so LinkedIn Learning. We've also looked at book club subscriptions as well to provide that as another component for them to be able to utilise.
That's a really interesting one, because something I was actually talking about with my husband yesterday was that a lot more people, because they're working remotely, because of the whole COVID close down, are embarking on hobbies, and those hobbies are accessible through things like teaching platforms, YouTube channels, things that are subscription based, which are also the same type of platforms that are providing business experiences and business training. So if an organisation provides, as a part of a package, access to a platform that has a whole bunch of business information and learning, then it also could actually give them access to a whole range of activities and hobbies and interests as a default, which is a huge benefit to them if they're wanting to explore their whole person in that space.
Yeah, definitely. And we haven't limited access to the system to just the business components or the technical components. Like you say, we've opened it up to all those other creative areas as well, and they can definitely add that to their learning programs and take that through for wherever they want to go.
How important is it for employees, as they're joining an organisation, to see that they have a career development plan, so that they can say, well, I'd like to be a manager in 2 years' time, and that there's actually a very defined pathway that they can access or subscribe to, that they're on, I know in big firms like your big accounting firms, there's partner track, which basically means you're identified as a potential leader and you're investing in a process which is a two-way street, which is heading towards partnership. So in any organisation, even if it's a small one, how important is that as a part of the benefits of working with that organisation?
Yeah, I think it's really important to give some guidance and pathway options, but have some flexibility in there as well, because you never know what's around the corner sometimes. I definitely know at Phocas I've had thrown to many opportunities that I wouldn't necessarily have seen in my time at that point in my career, and if I'd had more of a fixed sort of program that says by year 2 you're going to do this, and year 3 that might have sort of been limiting, but having some sort of guidance and structure, but still some flex in it as well, so as things change in people's lives, or new information comes on board, then they can definitely pivot, as the word of the year is.
Yeah. So I suppose as some of our younger generations start creating major life changes as well, because we've got younger generations who will start families, who may have older parents that they need to support, they might want to travel and have a bit of diversity there. Within that working environment, within the job, is it important for those employers to have a level of flexibility and understanding about the changes life-wise that their employees are going through, and being able to adapt so that they're not having to make a choice to leave a business, even though they're an amazing employee, because there just isn't any level of flexibility or movement that will allow for that?
Definitely. I think particularly the Millennials and Gen Zs want that flexibility in making their own choices, and also being able to still be involved no matter what's happening in their lives as well. So one of the things that the P&C team at Phocas this year is starting to embark on is that employee life cycle. You start by coming in, and then there's many sort of little components that you can go through, and each year you sort of, I guess, can say, are we on the bus still, or are we off the bus at the moment, and having, I guess, those honest conversations about, where are you in your career, or where are you in your fulfillment of your role, and what else do we maybe need to look at to increase that and support you through that.
So Is it enough to just have like a 6-monthly review where, you know, the old KPI performance review where every 6 months you'd fill out a survey that says I like working here or I don't like working here, and it was anonymous, and then somebody gave you, you know, said to you, set some goals, and then 6 months later you're just reviewing the same way? Is that enough now when we're working with some of our younger generation?
Look, there's purpose behind it, but I definitely think that more frequent conversations are necessary. You know, I'm a millennial myself, and I enjoy my weekly catch-ups with my manager just to, you know, download what's been happening both from a work perspective, but also a personal perspective, and, you know, reassessing, you know, what's coming up for us and maybe where do we need to go. So I think if you had it more structured in only every 6 months or whatever, you know, it doesn't open that channel for communication, and, you know, you're losing out on the immediacy effect of any sort of conversations that you might need to have with the individual to put them back on the right path, or, you know, I show them a different opportunity that's arisen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I suppose a lot of businesses get blindsided by people leaving them, and, you know, why is that? Why does all of a sudden the first we hear of something is I'm unhappy and I'm leaving? What do you think causes that effect to happen?
Yeah, sometimes it's, I guess, the fear of being open in the business. You know, you don't necessarily want to go tell your boss, hey, I'm unhappy, because there is some consequences to that sometimes. But I think through having those more regular open session conversations, it does provide the opportunity for you to actually really get a pulse check of where that person's at. You know, are they possibly someone who is maybe thinking now, and also knowing them really well as to where they are at their career, and can your business provide that, you know, in the next 3, 6, 12 months, and then helping either put a plan together for how that might sort of evolve, or, you know, being able to support them so if they were to need to exit the business and go find those opportunities elsewhere, it's a no regrets exit.
I think that's quite important, because something which was reflected on in our previous sessions was that when people are unhappy, whether it's in the recruitment process that they've heard no feedback, or it's been throughout working with an organisation, in our younger generations, they're far quicker at giving the bad review, which creates brand damage.
Absolutely.
So how people leave your organisation is just as important as what they're like when they're working for you. Is there processes that a business can put in place when we're looking at that exit interview process, when we've decided, look, this is not the right fit anymore for this particular individual, whether it's their choice or ours? What does a good exit process look like?
Yeah, I guess it changes depending upon the sort of environment a little bit, but, you know, definitely having those conversations early on, you know, and I would encourage people to maybe change it from exit interviews to stay conversations. So, you know, these are more frequent, maybe each quarter you identify people in your business and just have a conversation with them, or, you know, if you don't have people in culture or HR in your business, maybe it's one of the senior leaders, just providing a fireside chat, you know, opportunity so that people can come and just share what's on their minds, or what they're seeing in the business, because, you know, sometimes, you know, you're not always in the weeds every day and not seeing what's absolutely going on. And then, yeah, just working through that, you know, but again, honest conversations are going to do you best.
Yeah. So one of the things which has come up regularly, we find particularly for smaller businesses, is that there's this balancing act between that public feedback and the protection that comes for a manager or a business owner by having a witness to a conversation, versus that private wanting to respect, you know, the privacy of the individual, not wanting them to then have a public conversation. And it's really quite difficult for them to navigate that. So is there any sort of tips you'd give around just determining what's the right approach to having harder conversations with staff?
Yeah, I think it's just about knowing the person and knowing what their triggers are, and then being able to accommodate to that. It's not bowing down to them, but it's just, if they are more of a person who seems to open up by going out and having a coffee or going for a chat and walk, maybe, invite that sort of more to the scene rather than, come to my office or, that sort of older style of a approach.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying there is very much that we really need to know our employees a lot better. So that distance between the boss and the employees, and that we don't really know each other very well, is actually something that can hurt a business now because of some of the things that have been covered today around not so much the socialisation, but the understanding and the actively spending time getting to know what drives our teams and each individual in that team. And look, that's a challenge for a business owner or for a manager to understand that that's a really core part of their role, and that they've got to embrace it. It's not just something I have to do on the side, but it is actually the fundamental role that I play in an organisation.
Definitely.
So we had a bit of a chat offline previously around loyalty to a business, and this is something that, some of our older generations, loyalty was a huge factor to a business. People would work for 20 years with a business. They might hate working there, but they have a sense of loyalty. It doesn't mean the business was getting a good result by having them there, but it still meant that there was this aspect of loyalty. Is that something we should actually expect from younger employees? And if it's something we want to see happen, what are some things that we could do to grow loyalty in our staff?
Yeah, so I'm not too sure that it should be expected these days, particularly with this up and coming generation. They definitely want new things to sort of get attracted to. Or it might not talk to their why, and I think one of our previous presenters was talking about understanding what that person's motivators and why is. If that's not being met, then of course the loyalty won't be there. So having a look at your environment and what you're sort of contributing, are you setting them up for success, or are you inhibiting that pace? So I guess some practical tips and tricks around that is, maybe finding groups of people that you can pull together to help solve a business problem that may not always work together, and that's one of the things at Phocas that we're starting to put into play is agile teams. You hear it in the software world, in the development teams a lot, but we're now actually bringing that into the business more. So, it's not just people and culture solving the people problems, we're actually bringing in others that are across the business to help solve that piece there.
I think that's a great idea because it creates obviously engagement. It's showing value to your staff, that you actually value their opinion and their capability and their willingness to be involved. I think even for a small business, what would that look like? Well, it could look like a challenge within the business that you decide to take a small amount of time out and together work on it and brainstorm and come up with various ideas so that they feel like they're part of that process. Obviously at a bigger scale that can be done more regularly, but even at a small level it's something that can be embraced that makes people feel part of the growth of that business, invested in it, which of course creates loyalty.
That's right. So
let's talk about a few practical takeaways. These are the types of things that we really need to understand about retaining our employees. So throw a couple at me. One of the ones that we really were looking at earlier, but we didn't go into any depth on, was around recognition programs.
Sure. Yep.
So tell me, what do you guys do around recognition programs, and what are some of the ideas that are out there that could be delivered in other businesses?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ideas out there for recognition programs. It could be, recognition of service to the business. It could be recognition of an awesome job on a project. And again, that could be public or private. So we have an intranet that we post all of our successes and news and everything up there. And everyone in the business sees that and then can make all their comments around and, congratulations or great job there. And that really is just so rewarding for that person who's had that win or been a part of that project. I sort of smirk at the moment because there's a project running and the theme is Financial Statements Olympics, and everyone who's in the teams have done little videos, and there's a competition at the moment for the opening ceremony, who's won the best opening ceremony video. So yeah, that's just, again, even if you're not a part of it, you are a part of it as well. And that's just one way of recognising people's creativity in the business as well.
Yeah. I think the concept of recognition is important because it goes to value. People want to feel valued. Correct. And you know, the go-to has always really been, I think, particularly for smaller businesses, oh, we've got to hand out a cash prize or a voucher for this, or I have to come up with something really complicated or costly. But I think in the same way as when we're showing recognition and appreciation to customers, it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's actually more the gesture of valuing the contribution that person has made, however big or small it might be. Social media, the concept of liking and sharing something is really a part of that. It's about saying, hey, I did this, or look at this, and people showing engagement and appreciation. So I think even within a smaller business or a larger business, there's lots of opportunity to do creative things and to get other people coming up with the ideas for your recognition program. We had a client recently we were talking to who asked their team, what's meaningful to you from a recognition point of view. So it doesn't even have to be the bosses that have to come up with the ideas, but it's a good thing to look at. Is there anything else before we wrap up for this session today that you think is really a fundamental when we're talking about keeping those employees with us?
Yeah, so I think it just is also programs that you have to build leaders or to understand your people more. We use Great People Insights as part of our recruitment process to understand how will this person fit into our culture, and where, you know, are there opportunities for growth and learning with that space. And also just one other thing that we've done more recently, which I guess talks back to the agile teams and using the brains in the business to come up with ideas, is we've run a Shark Tank scenario because we had a problem that we were trying to solve, and you know, the leadership team could have sat around a table or over Zoom sessions and you know, discussed ideas and all that, but we went, no, let's spend that out to the other people, and it was an amazing 2 sessions and got some really great ideas that we're enacting right now, and others that, you know, are in the pipeline to take on at some future state. So yeah,
fantastic.
Take on all the reality TV show ideas.
Well, why not? They don't have to be unique. They just have to be fun, creative, and get people to engage and feel like they're a part of the business. And you know, people who are happy, people who are being managed well, people who feel like they're part of the ultimate purpose of the business and they're heard in that, are more inclined to stay. You know, we can't retain everybody. No. You know, there is an exit point at some point for every employee, and how could we possibly gauge the day they come in the door, particularly for a role, what might be the likely, I suppose, length of time that this person will probably stay in this role before they'll need to move on? Is there any kind of tools we can use to help with that?
I mean, we sort of do lots of check-ins with people to sort of see where they're going, and, you know, work with the leaders of the business to understand, well, what opportunities are coming up, or how could we, you know, grow that person if that's a future state role for us. So that's how we sort of, I guess, work with that. You know, definitely the Great People Insights and culture sort of surveys as well. So Phocas uses human synergistics, and I'm very proud to say that we just won a culture award there last year, which is awesome. And it's great to be part of that sort of thing and watching it grow.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of what you guys are doing and around retaining employees. If there's anything that people have specific questions around that they want to throw at us that we can get Rebecca to comment on after today's session, there might be some tips and tricks that you've got up your sleeve that you want to know, would that work in an organisation like ours? Then throw them our way on the Q&A. We're going to wrap up for this session now, and we're going to come back with our next session, which is going to be around what is coming next. So we've been talking all about our millennials and our Gen Z staff members and workforce, but what else do we need to know about the next generations coming through so that we can prepare for them as they do arrive in our workforce?